All right. So I hope that over the last couple weeks, if you haven't been here, we've been talking about real friends with real benefits. And I hope that I got to get my clicker. If you haven't been here, I hope that you've taken the opportunity to go online and listen, because this is a really, really important conversation. And I think it's one of those conversations that, quite frankly, can be the difference between becoming the man that God has created you to be, or becoming the woman that God has created you to be, and not. Right? So I think the difference between the place that you actually want to be, the person that you want to be, and the person that you are, very likely is the friends that you have, the friends that you will make. That's a game changer. And so we've been talking over the last several weeks about how to develop them and the importance of real friends with real benefits. Now, let me just say this to you. I would bet that if you would look back over the course of your life, you would say, when I think about the best times of my life, I think of certain memories, but they're always associated with certain people. And when I think about the worst times of my life, I have certain memories, but they're also associated with certain people. So in other words, whether it's the highs or the lows, regardless of what they are, when you think about those points in your life, there's always connected with that a face or two faces, a name or two names, right? So I was thinking about, in the course of my life, probably two personal bests in my life, the things that have required just like an over-the-top commitment. Two things that have required a tremendous amount of personal discipline and personal sacrifice. I was thinking, like, what would be some personal bests in my life? And two things that I thought about would be, over the last several years since I've been here, I've actually got into something like some competitions called physique shows. I always like to talk about them like those are bodybuilding shows for dudes that don't have muscles. That's for guys like me, right? And so I've actually done 3 of those over the last several years. But basically what it requires is that you for like 20 weeks, you just diet down and you get really lean. And I like to call it lean. The truth is you're just really skinny, right? And you go out there and you wear those little shorts. When I say physique show, a lot of times people think about those little tiny, what do they call them, banana hammocks, I'm sorry. I just don't want you to have that image because that's not nice, right? So was that wrong? Should I not have said that? Okay, but the physique show, right? So for me, that was it. I've never in my life done that. Like 20 weeks of, I didn't miss a meal. I didn't mess up at all. I didn't cheat on my eating. I did everything exactly like I was supposed to do. The moods that I went through, it was terrible. Like there were days I didn't want to go to the gym. There were days I didn't want to eat chicken and broccoli again. But just for 20 weeks, just the incredible amount of discipline. And as I think back over those last 3 competitions that I actually participated in, I think about all of the personal stuff that happened there, but I think about a couple of people that were involved with me on that journey, right? And honestly, there were moments in which I could not have continued had it not been for 2 people in my life, one of which was my bride, right? Encouraging this ridiculous goal that I had, this thing that I wanted to do. She encouraged me. She put her arm around me. There were moments where I'm like, this is stupid, man. I just want a cake, And she just, right? And so it was a personal best. As I look back, probably the journey. I always tell everybody at our gym, everybody should compete in something, right? And it's not the fact that you get to be painted orange and look really skinny and stand on a stage. It's the fact that you've had incredible amounts of discipline for 20 weeks, right? And so that was a personal best in my life. And I think about that, and I'm like, I was surrounded by at least 2 people that were unbelievable in that process. I could not have done it if it weren't for Rob and Sherry, two friends, and one bride and one friend. Although Sherry does call Rob my gym wife, but let's not tell him that. And then, another personal high in my life was, I've had the opportunity to do some graduate work, some graduate studies, and get a couple extra diplomas on my wall. And I'm always excited about that because it's an opportunity for me to brag about Jesus. I always think, my life without Jesus, I'm a high school dropout. That's the story of my life without Jesus. I got a GED through the military. And then I gave my life to Jesus, and he began to transform all kinds of things, including the educational wing of my life. And so after having fully surrendered to Jesus and began to follow his call on my life, I ended up earning several degrees. And, the commitment and the sacrifice, all the hours that went into that, carrying a full-time load while having a family that was continuing to increase in size. I simply could not have done that without the absolute and close friendship of a couple of people. Again, one of those was my bride, but there were a couple of others also. They were part of my inner circle that really helped me as I accomplished my personal best. And so I would just guess that if you think about like your personal bests, my guess is that as soon as you begin to think, yeah, that was one of the better times of my life, or one of the most exciting periods of life, or one of the goals of which I'm most proud, my guess is that you're probably pretty quickly going to begin to remember some people who were associated with you or who were helpful for you as you accomplish that goal. Now, so a book that I've actually been encouraging you to read, in addition to the scriptures, I always think the scriptures should be a part of your regular daily reading rotation. I encourage you to do that. But one of those books is a book called The Power of the Other by Dr. Henry Cloud. And I've referred to that several times throughout this. And he has a sentence that's been kind of helpful for us as we've been thinking through this idea of real friends with real benefits. And one of the things that he says in this book is that you really can't get sustained high performance without deep connected relationships. This is a really important sentence, right? In other words, you may be able to do something really good one time, but to be able to do it over and over and over, to sustain a high level of performance, it's impossible to do it by yourself. If you're going to achieve and sustain a high level of performance, it's going to require that you have some deep, healthy, strong friendships as a part of your life. Now, if you look at any performer, right, whether they're an athlete or a musician or a speaker or a writer or a contractor, whatever, anybody that's performing at the top of their game, I guarantee that what you're going to find behind the scenes are people who are connected to them and giving input into their lives. And that's what our personal best requires. Sustained high performance fueled by deep connected relationships. And then, some of this is review, but it's worth it. It's because, look, I'm not presumptuous enough to think that you remember everything I say when you leave here, because sometimes I don't even remember everything I say when we leave here on Sunday, right? But Dr. Cloud, in his book, he teaches about the 4 corners of connection, right? And what I've done is I've made a really fine graph to go along with his really fine teaching, right? Let me show you. You think he'd like that in his book, his next book? Right, and so we've talked about this every week, but let's just do a little review. Over here is corner 1. In this corner, you're connected to no one. Like, you really don't have anyone that's providing input into your life. There's no one that's speaking into your life. You're just kind of sitting at home, reading Facebook and watching Netflix, drinking chocolate milk, eating Little Debbie's, okay? This is you, all right? Corner 2, basically all the inputs into your life are negative. Lots of people saying discouraging, unhealthy, unhelpful things, right? You can't, you shouldn't, you didn't do it last time, what makes you think you're going to do it this time? All those unhealthy, unhelpful, negative criticisms, all right? Corner 3, this group of people, they're just having a good time everywhere they go. It's always a party, it's always fun, lots of superficial, false positives being poured into their life. Yeah, man, this is great, you're doing a great job, this is all right, okay, lots of that. And then there's, but the problem with this right here is the fact that these guys, girls, can't handle any real substantive conversations. Anytime someone wants to sit down and have a serious conversation with these guys, or anytime they want to offer some helpful feedback to these guys, you know what these guys do? They run from corner 3 right over to corner 1. They just withdraw. They can't handle helpful feedback. They can't handle loving criticism, so they don't. They run from here right over here. Now, what we've been talking about the last several weeks is the fact that we want to live here. This is a place in which our relationships are safe, they're helpful, they're encouraging. We have people in our life who love us enough to confront us. In this corner, people who are in corner 4 relationships, they're open to receiving input and feedback. Proverbs talks a lot about this. The book of the Bible called Proverbs talks a lot about being willing to receive criticism, being willing to receive input so that we can get better. In this place, we're accountable with one another. We share our goals. We share our hopes. We confess our sins. And we love one another enough to speak encouragement, confrontation, etc. into one another's life in corner 4. And that's where we're aiming for, all right? So we've been talking a lot about corner 4 relationships. Now, I've asked you this question every week so far, but it really is worth asking again. As we sit here this morning and as we describe corner 1, corner 2, corner 3, corner 4. Take just a second and ask yourself, where are most of my relationships? Am I in corner 1? Am I in corner 2, corner 3, or do I have some corner 4 relationships in my life? It's a helpful question. So we know that we cannot do something important and significant and do it well for a really long time without good people around us, right? If we're going to sustain a high level of performance, and I'm talking mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, just as a matter of life, right? If we're going to sustain a high level, it's going to require that we have good corner 4 relationships. But here's the thing, these kinds of relationships don't happen by accident. Like, we're never going to have these kinds of relationships if we just sit at home on Facebook hoping that someone will start that with us. These kind of relationships require an incredible investment. There's a cost to these kinds of relationships. And last week what we did was we studied what Jesus said about friendship. And from his teaching, we deduced that there are 3 obstacles to corner 4 real friends with real benefits relationships. And if you missed this, let me encourage you to go online and listen to it. You can go on Church 180 TV or church180.tv, or it's going to be on our Facebook page today at noon, facebook.com/mychurch180. I encourage you to go back and listen to those 3 obstacles to healthy friendships. But what I want to do today is I actually want to go back and look at the scripture that we looked at last week and see what Jesus said about friendship and the costs that are associated with building a next level friendship that will actually help you go to the next level spiritually, right? Now, Jesus had a best friend, and his name was John. And John ultimately ended up writing a biography about Jesus, and it's found in our Bible. It's called the Gospel of John. And in this biography, John was writing about a conversation that Jesus was having with a group of his friends, his disciples, apostles, right? And in John 15, Jesus is saying to them, look, if you stay relationally connected to me, you'll bear much fruit. If you stay plugged into me, I will help you to do things that you can't do on your own. I will help you to demonstrate new attitudes. I will help you to overcome old habits. I will give you power that you cannot have on your own. If you'll stay connected to me, I will empower you to bear much fruit, right? Now, if you're unfamiliar with that terminology, bear much fruit, it's simply a biblical metaphor for becoming something bigger than what you're ever able to become on your own, right? For doing things that only God could help us to do. And then Jesus, after he talked about that, he said, look, there's something I want to say to you about friendship, and this is where we want to look today, right? This is in John chapter 15, starting at verse 13. He says, this is my commandment, love each other in the same way I have loved you. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. Now you are my friends since I've told you everything the Father told me. So as we looked at these verses last week, we said, okay, there's 3 components to a corner 4 next level kind of friendship. And here they are: sacrifice, submission, and no secrets. Those 3 components are what comprise a relationship that will absolutely add value to you and to the person with whom you're in a relationship. Now, let's be honest. I look at these 3 words, and I don't get the feeling of a lazy Sunday afternoon kind of thing, do you? Like, I look at these 3 words, and they feel weighty. You know what I mean by weighty? They feel like somebody just put a backpack on me that's filled with stones. They look like they're going to require a lot from me. You guys get that feeling? Like sacrifice, submission, no secrets. These are intense words, and they don't sound tremendously easy. So before we actually dig into this a little bit, let me just tell you 2 things real quick. Number 1, real corner 4 friendships will actually make you better. But they sound like hammers banging. Have you ever done any kind of remodeling in a house? Anybody ever do that? It's dusty. It's dirty. There's lots of noise. There's deconstruction, and then there's construction, and the result is always something better. But before the better happens, there's banging, and there's tearing things down, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into that. By the way, that's going to start happening here in this space over the next few weeks, right? As we begin to move this wall back, we're going to be moving some things around in the back. The cafe is going to move over there. We're going to be making some adjustments here in our space to accommodate an easier flow for people who are coming in. But it's just crazy. But that's what Corner 4 friendships look like. They're absolutely valuable. They'll absolutely make you better, but oftentimes they sound like a hammer banging, tearing things down, and then building things up. The next thing I'd like to just say to you shortly is real Corner 4 friendships. Like when we look at these words, sacrifice, submission, no secrets, that sounds like, climbing into a cage, somebody's going to hurt you, right? Sacrifice, submission, no secrets. That doesn't sound like a tremendous amount of fun. And so what I don't want to do is paint this idea that real Corner 4 friendships are hard work all the time, because they're not. Real Corner 4 friendships actually have the capacity to do life well with us, to rest, to play, to laugh, but not forever. This is really important. At some point, real, helpful Corner 4 friendships will get back to work. If the only thing your friendships do is offer you a good time, those are Corner 3 friendships. Those aren't Corner 4 friendships. Those are not the kind of friendships that will take you to the next level. If all of the people in your life, if everybody you get together with is just laughs and ha-has and good times, my guess is those are not the friendships that are going to take you to the next level spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally. At some point, Corner 4 friends know how to laugh and have a good time, but they also know when to say, okay, it's time to get serious. Let's talk about our hearts. Let's talk about our habits. Let's talk about our marriages. Let's talk about our spiritual life. Let's talk about some substantive things and get down to work so we can make one another better. Now, there's a real cost to these kinds of friendships. They don't come easily. They don't come accidentally. They require a tremendous amount of intentionality. So let me show you some costs of real Corner 4 friendship. Jesus said, there's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Now, ultimately, death is the greatest sacrifice. But in this room, it's highly unlikely that any of us are going to dive on a grenade for our friends, right? Tremendous amount of honor and respect for men and women who literally lay down their lives for their friends. I have the utmost respect for them. But in this room, it's highly unlikely that any of us are going to be involved in a friendship that requires that level of sacrifice. But there are real sacrifices. There are real costs that come with Corner 4 friendships. Let me show you two of them. The first is this: time. So here's the question. Is there anyone in this room that frequently thinks to themselves, what am I going to do with all this extra time that I have? Like, I've got all this extra time. What am I going to do with it? Now listen, from time to time, I'll hear my kids say, I'm bored. I cannot stand that word. I don't let our kids use that word. I think like bored is not something that adults especially should be, right? I don't think adults should be bored. I think a bored mind is a mind that's subject to find itself in trouble, right? So as adults, we should be in charge of the time that we have and fill it with good, constructive, healthy things, including rest, including play, right? Well, as adults, we should not be bored. Most adults have this situation instead. I don't have enough time. I need more time. Probably most of us at some point have said that. I don't have enough time. I need more time. See, time it's just rare. Like we just don't, and it seems like the older you get and the more responsibility you take on, the less time you have. And now I'm telling you that if you want real Corner 4 healthy friendships, it's going to take time. You're like, where am I going to fit that in my schedule? So as I was preparing for this teaching series, I I listened to a teaching series done by a pastor I respect tremendously called The Benefits of Brotherhood from Bill Hybels. He taught it in 1985, right? And he taught about this subject of friendships, and one of the biggest obstacles to healthy friendships back then, 1985, was time. That's crazy. 1985, I mean, I didn't even know they had time back then, right? So, no, this is actually funny. So I was telling our kids this is about a week or so ago, I was telling them about that, there was a time when TV was black and white, right? There was no color on TV. And one of my kids looked at me and said, Dad, when you were young, was it all black and white? Like, did you have color when you were young? Like, color was something that just started in 2000, right? Yes, we had color, all right, okay. But, like, time has always been an issue for people who are interested in building substantive, meaningful, corner four friendships. And the crazy thing is that I read through the Bible, I see that it was even an issue for people back then, like 2,000 years ago. Time was an issue for them. So, like 2,000 years ago, St. Paul, he's writing this letter to the people in Ephesus, and this is what he told them. He said, look, be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Look at this. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. Make the most of every piece of time. Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. And then the interesting thing is, if you read on, Paul gave them instructions about how to live their lives. The next thing he said was, hey, look, don't be going around getting drunk and carrying on, right? You've only got so much time. Don't waste it on getting drunk. He said, instead, what we ought to do is we ought to be filling ourselves up with the Spirit and speaking to one another and encouraging one another and affirming one another, doing corner four kinds of things. Are you with me? Now, let me speak to two things. I hear it a lot, and sometimes it's me saying it. I just don't have time for this kind of relationship. I just don't have time for these kinds of friendships. And remember, we talked last week, you're not going to have a lot of these friendships. You may have one or two, maybe three. But let me dig into our business, my business, your business for a little bit. How much time would you say you spend in an average day on social media? How much time on Netflix? How much time do we spend in things that, quite frankly, will not make our lives any better? Serious. I mean, it's incredible how much time we can invest in things that just keep our mind busy but don't make our soul better. It's amazing how much time we can invest into things that are incredibly time-consuming that don't make our lives better. The point I'm trying to make simply is this. Time is not the issue so much as it is how we manage our time. That's the point that Paul was making 2,000 years ago. It's the point that Bill Hybels was making in 1985, and it's the point I'm trying to make today. Now listen, there's a lot of distraction going through. Are you guys all right? Is it just me distracted, or are you guys distracted? All right, watch them. This is important. Let me just say this to you. If it's true that you are the average of the 5 people with whom you spend the most time, then you and I should be tremendously mindful of who they are. We should be incredibly mindful of the people with whom we spend our time, because they will ultimately determine in large part who we are. Now, let me speak to a second thing when it comes to this matter of time. There are friends in your life who are low maintenance. God bless them. These are people that when they text you and you don't text back immediately, they're not like, are you mad at me? You know what I'm talking about? Right? I texted you like 5 minutes ago and you haven't responded to me. Is everything okay? Like, give me a break, dude, right? These are the people in your life that you can actually go several weeks without talking to, maybe even a couple months without talking to. And when you see them or you pick up your phone and you call them or you talk to them again, it's like you never stop talking. You just pick right up where you used to be. You know what I'm talking about? You know those kind of friends? I used to be thankful for those kinds of friendships in my life. Low maintenance, low cost friendships. But here's what I'm beginning to realize when it comes to this matter of friendships that will take me to the next level. Here's what it is. Friendships that require nothing don't make me better. Friendships that require nothing of me are not going to make me a better man. They're not going to make me a better Christian. They're not going to take my husband game to the next level. They're not going to take my dad game to the next level. They're not going to take me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. They won't take me to the next level if they don't require something of me. And it's not that these are bad. God bless low-maintenance people, right? Sometimes it's nice to have some of those people in our lives. But I'll bet if you think about your friendships, those are not the friendships that are pushing you to the next level, are they? The people that don't require anything, the people that are not those are not the friendships that are pushing you to be a better man, to know God better, to be a better wife, those are not the friendships that are doing it. There is a high cost to building genuine friendships that will actually make you a better man, a better lady, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And one of those costs is time. The truth is, it takes time to build relationships that will build you. It takes time to build these kinds of relationships that will build you. But there's another sacrifice that's involved in building real corner four friendships, and this is an important one. Emotional energy. Like, some friends are, and again, when we're talking about corner four friends, we're not necessarily, like you're not going to have 12 of these, right? You're not going to have a bunch of these. You're going to have 1, 2, maybe 3 of these people in your life who are corner four friendships, but they're heavy, they're weighty. I'm not talking about their size, I'm talking about the relational dynamic. It requires a lot from us, and quite frankly, when I read through the scriptures, let me just show you 2 scriptures. One of them is found in Hebrews, and it says this: let us think of ways, first of all, anytime I think, it requires something from me, doesn't it you? Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. Let us not neglect our, say it, meeting together, as some people do, but all of these require an output from me, right? If I got to think of ways to motivate you, if I have to take time to meet with you, if I have to take the energy to encourage you, it all requires something emotionally from me. And quite frankly, it's going to require the same thing from you for me. There's an output of energy here. It requires, in a schedule that's already full, our minds usually are full. We have so much going on. And now we've got this 1, 2, maybe 3 relationships in our life that require from us that I think about, how can I make you a better person? How can I motivate you to do acts of love? How can I motivate you to do good works? I have to stop and think about that. It requires emotional energy. I have to meet together with you, which again requires that I maybe say no to something else so that I can meet with you in order to encourage you. Emotionally. It requires an investment of me. And then there's this other thing that St. James writes about. He says this: confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. Listen, there are things in my life that, quite frankly, I'm not doing well at. I'm struggling with whatever, and I'm already like, I just don't want to talk about it. And now I got to come to you, and I got to say, I got to confess to you. It just requires energy that sometimes is just hard to muster up. Do you know what I'm talking about? Corner four friendships require this. It requires that I have someone in my life, right? We confess to Jesus. Obviously, we do that. The Bible tells us that over and over. But St. James says you should have someone in your life to whom you're confessing as well. And that requires emotional energy. I just want to go home and watch Netflix. I don't want to confess. I'm tired. But this is the sacrifice, this is the cost of corner four friendship. The emotional energy required here, quite frankly, is substantial. You're thinking about someone, you're thinking about how to encourage them, you're confessing your own sins. Let me just ask you a question. Have you ever been in a situation where you're listening to someone with your face, but in your mind you're a million miles away thinking about all the other stuff you got to do? You ever been there? Are you doing that right now? Corner four friendships require that we're there with our face, but that our heart is engaged as well. As you pour out your heart to me and you confess your sins to me, it requires my presence. As I pour out my heart to you and I confess my sins to you, it requires your presence. And that is an emotional energy drain. So I'm listening to Bill Hybels, and he's talking in a sermon about these kind of friendships. You know what he said? He said, brotherhood requires sharing the drama of another brother's life. And I pray to God that you have someone in your life that loves you enough to share the drama of your life, to listen to you, to speak forthrightly into your life, to call a spade, to speak words of confrontation, to speak words of wisdom, to speak words of healing, to speak words of encouragement. But all of that requires a tremendous output of emotional energy. Listen, life is simpler when you don't have to carry the burdens of other people. But it's not better. It's simpler, but it's not better. The cost of real corner four friendship, the kind of friendship that produces real benefit, it's high. It's a high cost. It requires time. It requires emotional energy. And they're precious commodities. But I will tell you this, they are a wise investment when they're invested into a corner four friendship. Now, Jesus talked about the cost of submission. He talked about the cost of complete honesty. And I think these two are almost synonymous, quite frankly. St. Paul in Ephesians 5:21 told the Christians there, you should submit to one another. And essentially what that means is that I'm willing to give you access to my life. I'm not willing to share it with everybody, but my corner four friends, those 1, 2, 3 people in my life, I'm willing to give you unfettered access to my life. There are no secrets. I have lowered my defenses. You can ask questions. You can look around. You can offer critiques. And next weekend, we're going to talk in depth about these two a little bit more. But, just stop for a second. You ready? This is important. When I talk about this stuff, here's what I realize. That's a lot of work. Anybody else feel that? That's a lot of work. And I would guess probably as I'm teaching this, there might be some of you in this room that are thinking like, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth it to invest the time, the emotional energy. I don't know if it's worth it to do all of that. So a while ago, I read a book called Do the Work by Stephen Pressfield. And in there, he said something that is very timely for this conversation. Look what he said. The more important a call or action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we will feel towards pursuing it. In other words, the greater the resistance, the more important the work. And I would bet that some of you in this room right now are thinking, it's a lot of work. I don't know if I want to put that kind of time and energy into building corner four friendships, giving someone unfettered access into my life, sharing a secret with 1, 2, 3 people who know everything about me. I don't know if I really want that. Let me just say this, the resistance you feel is normal. But if you give in to that resistance, you will always be normal. Which means you will never become the man that God created you to be, or you will never become the woman that God created you to be. If you live in corner 1, 2, or 3 for the rest of your life, you are destined to continue being what you are being. You may get a little bit better, but in large part, you're going to continue being what you are already. Sustained high performance requires deep, connected relationships. I mean, building friendships is costly. I think about this, like the line that occurs to me when I'm thinking about this is, look, you don't get real friends at Dollar General, right? I mean, my girls, for a time, like they love to go to Dollar General and like get little stuff, and it was crap, right? They could be like, oh, this is amazing, look at this toy, crack break, Dad, right? You get crap at Dollar General, sorry. That's the truth, right? I mean, fast and low cost doesn't usually produce quality, does it? Think about this. If you're really interested in getting healthy, are you going to get your food at McDonald's? If you're really interested in furnishing your house in a very nice way, are you going to get your furniture at Walmart? if you're really interested, this is kind of funny. If you're really interested in decorating your home in a nice way, are you going to get your picture frames at Family Dollar? Sherry and I actually tried that once. We're like, oh, cool, let's save some money and get picture frames at Family Dollar. We did. And then one day we're sitting in our living room and they just literally fell apart off the wall. Like, what the heck? Fast and low quality typically doesn't produce quality, right? You can't get your friends at Family Dollar. It requires a high cost. If you want corner four friendships that will actually take you to the next level and help you to stay there and grow from there, there is a cost. Time, emotional energy, submission, lack of secrecy. And the thought of all this, again, it will generate an internal resistance, but the return on investment is absolutely worth it. Now listen, here's what we want to do. Next week, I really want you to be here. Will you please? I encourage you to please be here, and here's why. A couple of years ago, I saw something that was transformational for me. I saw two men doing a real corner four friendship like I've never seen before. I've never seen two men genuinely love and care for one another like what I saw 2 years ago. They were honest with one another. I mean, they were so honest with one another that sometimes it made me cringe. I was like, oh, can you even say that? They were filled with love for one another. They laughed together. They poked and prodded and they confronted. The love that was there was like overwhelming to me. And I know one of these men, and he had told me about the kind of friendship that he had with this other fellow. And this other fellow happened to be in town. And so we went out for coffee because I said, I have so many questions for you. And so I want to just talk with the two of them and take notes and listen. And I scheduled our meeting for an hour at Starbucks. I thought, well, that should be sufficient, right? Get it done in an hour. 5 hours later, I went home. And I had to repair my corner four friendship with Mrs. Peterson. But we started at Starbucks. We ended at Dixie Pig. No joke. It was that. And I sat there. I'm like, this is, I've never seen anything like this. Now listen, here's what I want you to do. I've invited these two guys to be a part of next week's teaching. And we're going to clear all this stuff off. We're going to put a couple chairs here, and we're just going to talk. I'm going to kind of interview them. We're going to give you a chance to text in questions. This is a really important opportunity for us. One of those men is Jim Ockenfels. Jim and his wife Terry have been here for a couple of years now at our church. If you don't know the story of Jim's life, it's a story of God's faithfulness, his bride's grace and love. It's a beautiful story of transformation, but it includes a corner four friend. If you don't know the story, we're going to be posting it on Facebook. Jim and his wife Terry sat up here a couple years ago, and they shared their story of transformation, how God took a broken man and has made a husband, has made a marriage that's amazing. But it included the presence of a corner four friend. They're going to be here next week talking about this. Now listen, I encourage you to be a part of that because it will demonstrate to us the value of corner four friendship. So we're gonna get ready to eat together here in just a moment. And I pray that as we do, that you will consider the value and the necessity of corner four friends with real benefits in your life. And that maybe even today, God will bring someone into your life. Maybe you'll be eating across the table from them. Maybe you'll meet them for the first time. And you'll feel your heart, inside of your heart, like you'll feel like, maybe this is something that God is setting up right now. You'll begin to feel that, begin to sense that. Could I encourage you, if that happens, without being weird, right? We don't need to be weird, right? But if that begins to happen in your heart, maybe you just move across the room and say, hey, my name is Paul, right? What's your name? Start something, start a conversation, and maybe talk a little bit about the things we've talked about today. Walk across the room and see what happens, because I believe that God is interested in bringing us together as a church, but even at a deeper level, with relationships that will help us all go to the next level, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, across the board. This is his heart for his church, and it's my heart for you as well, all of us. We will grow together like this. Let me pray, and then we're going to eat some good food and have some good fellowship. Father, thank you for this time together. Thank you for Jesus' instruction on building friendships. Now, God, what we know is this. It's really easy to live in a world of, we're busy, and it's really easy just to build and foster corner 3 friendships where it's laughs and good times and ha-has. Sometimes we run to corner 1, we're all alone, we're not getting any input. Sometimes we get into corner 2, right, where that's just lots of negative. You really want us to live in corner 4, where we've got a handful of people who know us completely, love us unconditionally, push us hard, encourage us, cry with us, put an arm around our shoulder, and help us, Lord, as we help them. Together we grow to become all that you've created us to be. Help us, Lord, not to avoid those because of the cost associated, but help us to buckle down, Lord, and to give to those kinds of next-level relationships the cost required so that we can be all that you've created us to be. This is our prayer, Father, in Christ's awesome name. Amen.